Welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And, I was thinking about Christmas movies the other day. And what got me thinking about it was I was watching Minecraft Guess the Build series. And it had a bunch of hermits and some other people building different scenes. And one of their opening prompts was pick a scene from your favorite Christmas movie. And so they all did their thing. There were scenes from Elf and Die Hard and Rudolph and I don't know what else. But none of the scenes involved Christ in any sort of way. Okay, now that's not overly surprising. Aside from the fact I don't think any of those people are particularly religious, but it got me thinking about Christmas movies in general, because, or at least the classics, right? And we're talking about things like the old Rankin Bass movies, White Christmas, things like that, right? And while a lot of them talk about Christmas as a day, as a time, as a feeling, as a spirit, all of that, very few of them actually mention Jesus Christ. Now, there are a few that we'll mention in passing a little bit, or sometimes even more so. Like Santa Claus is Coming to Town, right? So it was narrated by Fred Astaire. You've got Mickey Rooney, who plays Kris Kringle, right? That type of thing. Yeah, and that one, they mentioned the gifts of the wise men. They mentioned, Chris and Jessica get married on Christmas Eve, the holiest day of the year. That's also why Chris, who's now going by Santa Claus at the end of the movie, when he decides that, oh, yep, I'm only going to go out once a year. What day shall I go? I'll go on the holiest day of the year. And so there are some references, at least, to the religious nature of the holiday. A Charlie Brown Christmas shocked people because you've got Linus, who is quoting from the scriptures, telling the Christmas story. I think he's reading from Luke 2, right? But so few of the classic Christmas movies really seem to focus on the non-secular nature of Christmas, right? The religious nature, where it sort of comes from. Now, to be fair, the modern Christmas celebrations, even prior to Santa necessarily, are still a relatively new invention. Okay, Christmas didn't become a national holiday in the United States until 1870, something like that. But so many of our classics are more focused on, giving and peace on earth and goodwill towards men. All of those are good things, okay? You get movies like The Polar Express or Miracle on 34th Street, which focus on faith and belief. Okay, that's great. Now it's a belief in Santa Claus, okay, which is maybe less great, but there is still that aspect of it. Miracle on 34th Street is sort of interesting because you've got Kris Kringle, who the movie pretty well sets up that he is actually Santa Claus. And it depends on which movie you're watching, but I think both of them do the same thing. Because there was the older version, there's one they made, I think in the 90s, something like that. But part of the thing that's interesting is that Chris is a generally nice person. And because he's a nice person, that's what really kicks things off in some ways, is he fills in to be the department store Santa, right? For Macy's department store. And he starts telling parents that, hey, the toy your kid wants, we don't have it here. We're out of stock. We don't have it. But if you go down the street to our competitor, they have it. And that suddenly launches a campaign of, hey, let's focus on the parents. And then, of course, by doing so, it does in fact boost the bottom line of the stores, but the focus is, hey, let's be nice to each other. Let's focus on the people here, okay? And then there are some that focus on the general goodwill, right? A Christmas Carol is a perfect example of one, with Ebenezer Scrooge, who hates everybody and everything, but especially Christmas. And of course, the three ghosts show up and teach him all about the importance of Christmas without once mentioning why Christmas is special, right? I mean, I've read the original stories. I've watched I don't know how many different adaptations, but my favorite, 100% my favorite, is A Muppet Christmas Carol. I don't know why, but the goofiness of the Muppets works so well to tell the Christmas Carol story. And I don't know what it is. I mean, the other one I really like was the George C. Scott version where Scott plays Ebenezer Scrooge. They talk a lot about, hey, we need to be better. You need to keep that Christmas spirit year round, right? But they don't really talk about why, right? White Christmas. I love White Christmas. This is a movie my wife watches at least once a year. I tend to do so as well. But every Christmas, we'll watch White Christmas. And it's fun. The music is great. Was it Irving Berlin? Gershwin's? I don't know. I can't remember who wrote Irving Berlin wrote White Christmas. But I think he wrote all the music for that movie. But that's a movie that doesn't talk about Christmas much, other than the fact that it is Christmas time, right? They're going up to the girls are booked at the inn because it's Christmas. They're booked there for the holidays. It's the floor show at the hotel. Okay, so the guys go up to Vermont, but they see their old commanding general. They decide to help him. And said, all of this is good. All of this is great. But the fact that it's Christmas very rarely makes a huge amount of difference, right? And then, of course, How the Grinch Stole Christmas really focuses on what is the spirit of Christmas, right? Because the Grinch, and I totally understand the Grinch's perspective on some of this, the Who's are loud in their celebrations, and he gets tired of the noise. I get it. Okay. It could be a little much. But obviously the Grinch goes overboard. But when he goes and he steals Christmas, right? He takes all their presents, and he takes the tree, and he takes all the food, and right? And the Who's still come out, and they still sing and welcome Christmas, while it lasts, right? And that's the whole thing, is maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas means just a little bit more. Now, from How the Grinch Stole Christmas, from a Dr. Seuss story, I don't expect them to be diving into, again, the religious history of the holiday. But nothing does, or very, very, very few Christmas movies, especially the classic ones, but I think it's even worse now. Very few of those Christmas movies actually talk about why we have Christmas, right? You look at the Latin Christmas, means Mas meaning day, M-A-S, Mass meaning day, and Christ meaning Christ. This is the day of Christ, Christ's day. And yeah, nothing talks about it. So now there are a couple of exceptions. Like I know of right offhand, right? There's the little drummer boy, and Nestor the long-eared Christmas donkey, right? The little drummer boy, of course, is the kid who comes and plays his drum for Mary and the Christ child. And Nestor is the donkey that Mary rides to Bethlehem. Now, as I'm going through this, I just realized, and some of you have been shouting at me in the comments, I'm sure, A Christmas Carol does actually mention Christ. Even in the Muppet version, which is cool, because, I finally remembered. I watched this like just a few days ago, right? So it's like, it should be fresh in my mind. Here comes Kermit with Robin, right? Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim. And there's, they get home and, Cratchit is talking to his wife, Kermit and Piggy. And he says, yeah, Tiny Tim was hoped that the people would see him and remember he who made the blind to see and lame men walk, right? Okay. So that's there. That's good. Okay. At least it mentions it. And I have to admit, I should have included that. I have the memory of a steel sieve sometimes. But still, the focus is on, even in A Christmas Carol, well, they mention, and said at least in the Muppet version, it's sort of oblique, but they talk about the Christmas spirit as being something more than something else, really, I guess is how I want to put it. Now, all of that to say, I love Christmas. I love Christmas movies. Okay. At least some of the classics. There are a few I've watched that's like, okay, this isn't for me. This doesn't feel like a Christmas movie. Even those that are sort of borderline, like Die Hard. Okay. Now, I don't want to start the is Die Hard actually a Christmas movie debate. Okay. It takes place at Christmas. It's a guy it's a couple they're separated, if not divorced. He's coming back at Christmas to try to patch things up, and bad things happen to keep them apart. And then they come back together after the crisis is resolved to be together. Okay. Lovely Christmas story with terrorists. Other than the fact that nothing Christmassy in particular is what brings them together. Okay. Which is why you can have debates, though I think the director said, yep, Christmas movie. So, whatever. But, yeah, they're fun. But one of the things I like about Christmas, and again, as a Christian, of course, any chance to focus on Christ more is probably a good thing. But I like that even those who aren't interested in the religious aspect of Christmas, are more excited about the secular trappings, they still focus on all of those good things that Christ brings, right? That those tidings of great joy, of peace on earth and goodwill towards men, right? Those are things that we really should be focusing on. And so even though I sit here and I think about the secularization of Christmas and why so much of Christmas has been, what I heard the phrase the other day, de-Christ. they try to de-Christ Christmas. They still bring that focus of peace and love and sometimes forgiveness and sometimes giving, and all of that is a good thing, right? And I love these movies. Now, some of them are definitely cheesy, and I'm glad I only watched them once a year because I'd get sick of them. That's fair. But they're classics for a reason. Right. Now, I mean, you get Rudolph, and I feel for Rudolph, okay? And I would not have been overly surprised if, Santa comes, Rudolph with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? And Rudolph said, up yours, Santa. Would not have been surprising at all, okay? Right? Because they treated him like garbage because he was different. But that's not who Rudolph is, and he's a better person than just about everybody else in the movie. Okay. Oh yeah, he meets a few people like Hermie, the dentist, at least in the movie. The song obviously doesn't talk about Hermie. It doesn't have a verse about, Hermie the elven dentist. Uh, it's one of those things. It's like, here are people they're trying to be who they are and they can't. Because even somebody who's supposed to be accepting of everybody, Santa, boy, he's a jerk in that movie. Yeah, they sort of come around, and that's a good message of realizing that, hey, just because someone is different doesn't mean that we should be throwing them out. Now, I think there's sometimes another message there. It's, hey, it's okay to be different as long as your difference is useful. Okay, maybe that's not quite okay, but I really like a Charlie Brown Christmas for some of that messaging of, let's look at the secular trappings of Christmas, right? You've got Lucy, well, and most of the gang actually, who, when they send Charlie Brown to buy a Christmas tree, they don't, what they want is a big, like, metal Christmas tree, big artificial one that you can bang on, right? And what does Charlie Brown do? He comes back with a tiny tree that can barely keep an ornament up until they give it a Christmas makeover from the decorations from Snoopy's house, right? But yeah, it is very much a focus on, hey, maybe, I guess I'm about to quote the Grinch, maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store, right? Maybe Christmas isn't about all of that artificial nonsense, all the consumerism and stuff. Maybe Christmas is about something else. And that's a message I think that just needs to get out more. So even if it's a movie that doesn't focus on Christ and religion, because again, Christmas is, or at least was, a religious holiday. But any movie that helps promote peace on earth and goodwill towards man, I think is a good thing. I really do. And so while I could sit and watch these movies and just lament a little bit about the secularization of the holiday, I can still rejoice in the fact that it is still spreading the message that needs to be spread, even if it's not tied to Christ. And that's okay. And that's okay. I think, I said, I would absolutely love to see more actual Christ-focused Christmas movies, or at least those that remember the reason the holiday exists. And not focus on a Coke-branded fat man with a big beard, okay? Seriously, Santa used to be dressed in green until Coca-Cola marketing got a hold of him, So anyway, I guess a short episode today as we're coming up on Christmas, but I want to thank all of you for hanging out with me in all of the various episodes over the years. This is, what am I on? It's episode 135, right? We've been going for a while. I thank all of you for listening, and let me know what's your favorite Christmas movie, right? And why do you like it? What makes it so awesome? And until next time, be excellent to each other. Merry Christmas. And this is Music Free Static signing off.